Now let's go to the big issues of the day. I'm joined by Trish Sherson, Sherson Willis Director, and Phil Goff, former Auckland Mayor, former Labour leader. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you. Nice big ring, wasn't it? You wouldn't say no.
The life of the rich, the famous and the idle. Who cares?
I certainly wouldn't be photographed in that hideous dressing gown either.
Your ninth fiance. So, you know.
I know. Who does care, Phil? You're right. Now, have you got anything you want to say to Winston this morning?
Yeah, bloody grow some balls. It's we had 10 New Zealand servicemen killed in Afghanistan.
Yes.
My nephew was killed. He was a joint New Zealand US citizen and fighting with an American regiment. And this guy Trump, the 5-time Dodge drafter, comes along and says that apart from the Americans, none of the others were fighting on the front line. They all stood back a bit. It implied that they weren't brave enough. That's a gross insult. Families of those people, those New Zealanders who died. Even Keir Starmer came out and said, this is insulting and there should be an apology. We haven't had a word of criticism of Trump from Peters, from Collins or from Luxon.
Well,
that's a disgrace.
Collins did.
She commented, she didn't criticise.
Here's the thing that they will say. He was referring to NATO troops.
Bullshit.
We're not part of NATO.
Yeah. No, we were.
I mean, it's disgraceful.
We were under ISAF, the International Security Assistance Force, which was NATO-led. We were part of that deployment. Okay. Do you think Trump sat there and said, oh, the Brits were cowards, they held back from the front line, but the Australians and the New Zealanders, they were okay?
I don't think...
No, he was disparaging.
I don't think he thinks much about what he says.
No,
Look, and if
doesn't understand history. I got into trouble for saying that once.
if you want to learn how to grow up here, go and have a look at Mark Carney last week at Davos.
Yeah,
it was a masterclass. In my view, he has now flipped something of a switch where you are starting to see these Western leaders have a little bit more spine. Keir Starmer made a tough statement, but Trump's whole objective of going to Davos was, again, another episode in his reality TV show where he says outrageous things and then he wants the rest of the world to spend the next week
talking about
it until he says the next outrageous thing. And Phil knows this much better than I do, but I was thinking yesterday, hearing Phil's comments about back in the day when we stood up and took the nuclear-free stance. Some could argue that in those days New Zealand had much more to lose from going and taking a stance. We were way more isolated, we had less options in terms of trade, but we took a stance. And in my view, we're getting past the time now where if Luxon said last week, we are all about our values in terms of this US relationship where it has to be values-based. Well, it's time to actually act in a way that demonstrates our values.
But look at Carney, and now the threat is 100% tariff. I mean, every time you criticise the guy, he slaps you with a tariff. And I know that's not a reason not to, but will New Zealand speaking up change anything?
But that's what everyone's asking. And if everyone says, the equation is not right for us, no one does it. But the time now is actually in terms of, in my view, we need a coalition of voices against Trump, and we need leaders to stop thinking just about their own countries and the Western alliance leaders particularly to get together and start making joint statements.
And that was Carney's point. Look, what we know about a schoolboy bully is that they'll keep bullying, and the more you try to appease them, the more they'll bully. When you stand up to them, and a group of you stand up to them, then they back down. Europe showed that for the first time over Greenland. Outrageous what he was suggesting about Greenland.
Back down.
But he was forced to back down. And even 75% of Americans think that that's crazy. So, and we are still in the situation where Peters and Luxon are kowtowing to Trump. If we treat him nicely, maybe we'll avoid any
but Phil, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but when you're in government, it's harder because if you are the reason that there's a 20% tariff slapped on our beef exports to the number one market we export to, that's very bad for us. Yeah,
but we were halfway up Trump's backside, and he still put 15% tariffs on us, and said that was reciprocal.
A friendly thing to do.
When we have less than a 1% tariff on them. So the more you try to stroke his ego and appeal to his narcissism, the harder he goes on you. He doesn't respect that. He only backs down when he's forced to. And Carney's point, and the point that New Zealand has relied on in the past, is if you group together, you can force a back down.
All right, we're going to take a quick break from our panel and be back in just a few minutes with Trish Sherson and Phil Goff. Welcome back. Our panel this morning, Phil Goff and Trish Sherson. Let's talk about, we had the chief censor on this morning, Trish, and the big talk was your social media feeds are feeding you stuff, or people are sharing stuff, and actually a lot of the time it's illegal content, like really violent or cruel content. You might not even know it's illegal, but it probably is. But we still get fed it. How on earth is this happening? And like, is the horse bolted? Is there anything you can actually do about it?
Well, the algorithm is one thing, and we don't actually know how many people are searching this stuff out and watching it, or as they say, oh, it's just appeared in my feed. And you know, you can search one weird thing and your algorithm can go completely off. But I did think in the overall commentary about people don't know whether it's wrong or not. For goodness sake, this is helicopter parenting gone wrong. If you are watching something online and you think to yourself, gosh, that wouldn't be allowed in real life, it is absolutely illegal. And that's not a hard line for people to judge. My worry is that we've become frogs in the boiling pot, and we've just, you know, you can watch more and more horrific stuff online and you just get immune to it. Years ago, when I worked in TVNZ Current Affairs, I did a story with the guys at Internal Affairs who monitor the child porn stuff online and go for the prosecutions. And it is absolutely sickening when you see what those guys have to deal with, what day to day, not least of which what's happening to those kids. I think everyone has a much bigger responsibility to be grown up about what you're seeing online. If it looks like it would be wrong in real life, report it.
Yeah,
good point.
Yeah, no, I agree. When I was on the Select Committee, Justice Select Committee, the Select Committee went along to the Department of Internal Affairs and we watched some of the stuff they were capturing. I'd never seen anything like it before. I haven't looked at anything like it since, but it is disgusting. It is absolutely sickening. There's nothing erotic about it. It is horrible stuff dealing with kids being abused. And you've just got to crack down on that as hard as you can. And I know, you know, government agencies try to do that. But where are the social media companies? Where is the responsibility they're exercising?
Totally.
Who are the people that Elon Musk sacked when he took over X? They were the people that were looking after the safety aspects. He doesn't care about that. As long as he makes his billions out of it, he'll produce what he likes. That's the world we live in.
It's frustrating because we had on this show, I was mentioning to the chief censor earlier, we played a song or something, and automatically the companies, big tech companies go, oh, you don't have the rights to that, and we're able to take it off. If you can do it for a rights
that just
breach,
shows where the focus is.
You know?
Exactly.
If there's money involved.
Yeah.
But you know, I've taken the view, having seen that stuff in the course of doing that story. If you are watching that stuff, you are the abuser just as much as the person making it.
Absolutely.
And that's how the market is created. And, you know, there is just an absolute red line for me around that stuff. It's absolutely disgusting.
Hey, very quickly before we go to news, do either of you have a New Year's resolution?
Yeah, it's not to make a New Year's resolution. I used to do it in the old days, but then I had to live with the guilt of breaking it. So now I don't bother at all.
Trish?
I just think you have to try and make the next year even better than the last.
These are all waffly nothings.
What are you doing? Something boring like, you know, I'm observing my mind. Or
yeah, consciously eating or meaningful eating. I appreciate you both coming on this morning, even if your last answers were rubbish. Phil Goff and Trish Sherson, great to have you both in.